My name is Natalie Brooks. I'm 30 years old, and until 6 weeks ago, I thought I was about to marry the man I'd planned my entire future around. I didn't know my life was about to split cleanly into a before and an after the night my fiancé's mother decided to put a price tag on love. His name was Ethan Miller. We met 3 years ago at a charity 10K run on a cold Saturday morning. I remember him laughing when I complained about the playlist blasting through the speakers, something aggressively upbeat for people clearly suffering. He offered me one of those energy gels like it was a peace offering. We ran together, complained together, and ended up grabbing coffee afterward, still sweaty, still out of breath, still talking like we'd known each other longer than an hour. Things unfolded easily after that, comfortably, naturally. Ethan was charming in a grounded way. Stable job, thoughtful texts, the kind of man who remembered how I took my coffee and asked real questions instead of waiting for his turn to talk. After a year and a half, we moved in together. 8 months ago, he proposed. A small, intimate moment. No crowd, no spectacle, just us. I said yes without hesitation. The wedding was set for the following month. Invitations sent. Venue booked, deposits paid. On paper, everything was perfect. The first red flag should have been his mother, Linda. From the moment I met her, she treated me less like a future daughter-in-law and more like an investment opportunity. Every conversation somehow drifted toward money. What did I do for work? How much did I make? Was I contributing enough to Ethan's future? I told myself she was just protective, overbearing maybe, but loving. I wanted to believe that. But once we got engaged, Linda's interest intensified. She inserted herself into every wedding decision. She wanted a venue that cost more than my annual rent, a designer dress for herself, a guest list that ballooned from 75 people to nearly 200, most of whom Ethan barely knew. Whenever we tried to push back, she guilt-tripped him. "I sacrificed everything for you," she'd say. "I worked 2 jobs. Don't I deserve to see my son have a proper wedding?" Ethan would cave every time, and I would quietly absorb the cost. The wedding budget we'd agreed to split slowly became mine alone. Ethan said his mom was helping with planning, which somehow translated into him contributing nothing financially. I drained my savings, took out a small loan, told myself this was temporary. I loved him. I believed that once we were married, we'd be a team, that his mother would back off. 3 weeks before the wedding, Linda invited us to dinner. She said she wanted to talk about final details. Ethan was quiet on the drive over, fidgeting with his phone, avoiding eye contact. A knot formed in my stomach, tight and insistent. I should have listened to it. Linda's house looked the same as it always had, neatly trimmed hedges, porch light already on despite the early evening sun, the kind of place that projected warmth and stability to anyone passing by. I remember thinking, absurdly, that it was almost comforting. Familiar, safe. It wasn't. She'd cooked pot roast. The smell hit me the moment we stepped inside. Rich, savory, heavy. Normally, I would have appreciated the effort. That night, it felt calculated, like stage dressing. We sat at her dining table, the same one Ethan had grown up eating homework dinners at, the same one she'd probably guilt-tripped him across for decades. Linda served us with a tight smile, watching closely as I thanked her, as if politeness were a currency she planned to collect later. The conversation started innocently enough. Wedding dates, guest accommodations, how fast time flies. But then the tone shifted. "I don't think people really understand how much I've sacrificed," Linda said casually, dabbing her mouth with a napkin. "Raising a child alone isn't easy." Ethan nodded, eyes on his plate. She kept going. 2 jobs, missed opportunities, dreams put on hold. Every sentence was delivered with practiced restraint, like she'd rehearsed this speech in her head for years. I smiled politely, fork moving slower with each bite. I wanted to leave. I wanted the evening to end. Then she set her fork down. "I've been thinking," she said, looking directly at me now, "about everything I've done for Ethan." My pulse ticked up. I raised him, supported him, helped plan this wedding, and I think it's only fair that I'm compensated for that effort. I blinked. "Compensated?" I repeated. "Yes." She nodded, completely serious. "I have calculated what I've spent over the years. Clothes, school supplies, activities, college support. It comes to about $12,000. The words hung in the air, thick and unreal. "You want me," I said slowly, "to pay you $12,000 for raising your own son?" "It's only fair," she replied smoothly. "You're benefiting from all the work I put into making him who he is." I turned to Ethan. I expected shock, anger, laughter. Instead, he wouldn't meet my eyes. Ethan, my voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. He took a deep breath. I think my mom has a point. Something inside me cracked. She did do a lot for me, he continued. And if we're getting married, we should support family. Support family. I stared at him, really stared. This man I loved. This future I thought we were building. Ethan, I said quietly, we're already drowning in wedding debt because of these demands. I've drained my savings. Now your mother wants $12,000 for parenting? Linda's expression hardened. If you're not willing to honor what I've done, she said, maybe you're not the right woman for my son. I waited for him to object. He didn't. No payment, Ethan said softly, finally looking at me. No wedding. For a moment, everything went silent. Then I smiled, calmly, deliberately. Sure, I said. Let me grab my checkbook. I left Linda's house without another word. No slammed doors, no raised voices, no dramatic goodbye. Just the quiet scrape of my chair against the floor, the soft click of the front door closing behind me, and the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Ethan followed me out to the car, talking the entire time. She didn't mean it like that. She's just stressed. It's not that much money if we break it into payments. I didn't respond. I drove us home in silence, my hands steady on the steering wheel, my mind racing in a way that felt strangely calm, like something inside me had finally gone still after months of noise. When we got back to the apartment, Ethan went straight to bed. He kissed my cheek, mumbled, "We'll figure it out tomorrow," and fell asleep within minutes. I didn't. I sat on the couch, lights off, staring at the dark reflection of myself in the window. Every memory replayed with new clarity. Every time I'd paid quietly, every time I'd swallowed discomfort, every time I'd told myself love meant compromise. By 3:07 a.m., I knew exactly what I was going to do. The next morning, while Ethan was at work, I started making calls. The wedding venue first. The coordinator was kind but firm. Canceling this close meant forfeiting the deposit, just over $4,000. I understand, I said. Cancel it anyway. Then the caterer, the photographer, the band, the florist. Each call chipped away at the future I'd imagined. Each cancellation felt like tearing down a wall I'd built brick by brick. By noon, there was no wedding left to save. Ethan texted me. "We need to talk tonight." I replied with a single sentence. "Yes, we do." That evening, instead of going home, I went to a pub near my office, called 3 of my closest friends, the women who were supposed to stand beside me at the altar. They listened in stunned silence as I told them everything. One of them shook her head slowly. "Natalie, you just dodged a lifetime of this." I pulled out my phone, opened Snapchat, and took a video of us laughing. Beers raised, faces relaxed. Caption: when you realize you don't need a wedding to be happy. I sent it to Ethan. Then I blocked his number. I didn't turn my phone back on until the next morning. When I did, the screen lit up like a warning sign. Missed calls stacked on top of each other, texts piling in so fast the notification bar couldn't keep up. Most were from Ethan, a handful from his mother. I didn't read them. Instead, I called my landlord. The lease was in my name. Ethan had moved in later, informally. Legally, I had the upper hand, though that didn't make the conversation any easier. The landlord explained I'd need to give him 30 days' notice unless he chose to leave voluntarily. I made the decision for him. That afternoon, I packed Ethan's belongings. Clothes folded neatly, shoes paired, books stacked. I wasn't angry while I did it. I was focused, methodical, like someone clearing out a room after a storm. I changed the locks, then texted him from a new number. "Your things are outside. You have until 6 p.m. to pick them up." He showed up at 5:42. I watched from the window as he loaded boxes into his mother's car. He looked small, lost. Linda looked furious, her mouth moving rapidly as she gestured toward the building. They rang the buzzer. I didn't answer. That night, Ethan's best friend Rachel called me. She'd always been polite but distant, one of the few people in his life who never seemed fully under Linda's spell. "I just wanted you to know," she said carefully. "I think you did the right thing." I exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. "She didn't think you'd actually cancel the wedding," Rachel continued. "She thought you'd pay." "She gave me an ultimatum," I said. "I called it." There was a pause. Then, "For what it's worth, this isn't new. Linda's been manipulating Ethan his whole life." The call ended with quiet understanding, not comfort, not closure, but validation. A week later, an unfamiliar number came through. Against my better judgment, I answered. "This is Mark," the voice said. "Linda's husband, Ethan's stepfather." I remembered him vaguely, soft-spoken, always hovering on the edges of conversations. "I wanted to apologize," he said, "for what they did to you." My stomach tightened. "She told me about the 12,000 like it was a brilliant plan," he went on. "I told her she was out of her mind. We've been fighting ever since." "Why are you calling me?" I asked. "Because you should know this wasn't random. Linda's been in debt for years. Credit cards, loans. She's used Ethan to get money from people before. You're not the first." The words landed slowly, heavily. Ethan's last relationship had ended the same way. A fabricated emergency, a demand, a breakup. "This time," Mark said quietly, "she just made it sound official." When the call ended, I sat there for a long time. Vindicated, heartbroken, relieved. I hadn't imagined it. I hadn't overreacted. I'd walked away just in time. 2 weeks after Mark's call, a letter arrived. Handwritten. 3 pages. Ethan's handwriting, slanted slightly to the right, careful, like he was afraid of saying the wrong thing even on paper. He apologized. Not the rushed, defensive kind, not the kind that tried to negotiate a way back in. He wrote about therapy, about conversations he'd avoided his entire life, about how hearing the truth from Rachel and Mark had forced him to confront things he'd normalized for years. He didn't ask me to take him back. He said he understood why I left, that he didn't blame me, that he hoped someday I might forgive him, even if we never spoke again. I read the letter 3 times, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no longing. Just a quiet certainty that this chapter was over. I didn't write back. Some apologies are sincere. That doesn't mean they change the past. They don't return the savings I lost, the emotional labor I poured in, or the future I'd planned in good faith. I folded the letter once, then again, and threw it away. 3 months have passed since I called off the wedding. I moved into a smaller apartment closer to work. 1 bedroom, sunlight in the mornings, quiet at night. I decorated it exactly how I wanted. No compromises, no explanations. I bought a couch I loved, filled the walls with art that made me feel like myself again. Work stabilized, then improved. I paid down the loan I'd taken for the wedding that never happened. My savings started to rebuild. Funny how fast that happens when you're no longer funding someone else's dysfunction. I reconnected with friends I'd sidelined during wedding chaos. Started going to the gym again. Picked up hobbies I'd dropped: photography, hiking, reading for pleasure instead of distraction. I even adopted a dog, a scruffy rescue mutt named Milo who greets me every day like I've returned from war instead of the grocery store. Last week, I ran into Ethan at a grocery store. Across the produce section, our eyes met. He looked tired, older somehow. He gave me a small, sad smile. I nodded once and kept walking. There was nothing left to say. People ask if I regret how quickly I ended things, if I should have tried harder, been more understanding, given him another chance after the letter. My answer is always the same. No, I didn't walk away quickly. I'd been slowly pulling back for months, absorbing pressure, ignoring red flags, convincing myself love meant endurance. The $12,000 demand wasn't the beginning of the end. It was just the moment everything became impossible to ignore. Ethan made a choice that night. When his mother demanded money and threatened our wedding, he sided with her. He chose compliance over partnership, silence over protection, and I chose myself. That Snapchat photo, the one I sent from the pub, I still have it saved. Not out of spite, not to hurt him, but because it marks the moment I took my life back. I don't regret canceling the wedding. I don't regret blocking the calls. I don't regret walking away from a relationship that valued me less than a dollar amount. I'm 30 years old. I have peace. I have boundaries. I have a future that belongs to me. And I'm done paying, emotionally, financially, in every sense of the word, for someone else's inability to choose me.